Okay, I've got my 31 minutes back, and it doesn't seem like the music is on, so I guess I'm starting when it's silent until the music comes back on. There's a pile of papers on his desk that easily rivals what Timo was carrying around this morning. May I ask what you wanted to see me for? Oh, hey, Cecily. Thanks for coming. Called you here so we could have a little talk. About? About you saying we're not engaged? Oh, that. He playfully smiles back at me. I thought it best we get this discussion out of the way. We all want to go into this surgery with a clear head, right? I would have to agree with you on that. My gaze remains fixed on him. Do you realize the misunderstanding you've caused by saying that? There's no misunderstanding. He smiles back while taking hold of my hand. Listen, I remember we made a promise 3 years ago, but I don't recall saying anything about marriage. As I quietly shake my head, I notice the warmth of his hands surrounding mine. We both dreamed of becoming researchers, and we promised one another we'd achieve those dreams. Of course, and that promise was important to me. In reality, I think neither of us have fully achieved our dreams, right? You're right, Paul. You and I have made it this far to the Caldeo Zoo. And this is where our dreams begin. However, that's not the only promise we made. It's not? Paul takes a step closer to me. I notice he's tightened his grip on my hand. I reflexively try to take a step back, only to bump into the wall behind me. And I plan on keeping that other promise, regardless of whether you remember it or not. He leans closer enough that his breath faintly begins to tickle my cheek. It becomes obvious to me that I wouldn't be able to get away from him if I tried. Paul, wait, stop this. What is this promise you keep talking about? I don't have the faintest clue. What other promise could there be beside the one we made 3 years ago? If he's right, why can't I remember it? Paul's expression has turned serious. How could I forget a promise that he seems to feel so strongly about? The moment our eyes meet, my heart begins to race. I'm sorry, Paul, but I can't remember making any other promises, particularly the one about marriage. Do you really think I could forget something as important as that? Forgive me, this has me completely confused. I start to grow flustered. Paul looks way too serious to be making a joke, which could only mean he believes we made a promise to marry one another that I've since forgotten. If that's true, I'd feel horrible. That's all right. The look in his eyes as he gazes back at me reminds me of our past. If you've forgotten, that just means I'll have to remind you once again how much I love you. Both as your close friend and as a man, I'll have to become your boyfriend first. Oh, I hate that. I hate it. That's what I fucking hate about Paul. That's it. Right there. I stand there feeling bewildered. What do I say? We've been friends forever. Sometimes he even feels like family. I never imagined he would confess he loves me. My mind is completely blank. There you have it. Surprised? I can tell he's smiling as he talks softly in my ear, and I find it impossible not to feel agitated by the playful tone in his voice. You're teasing me, aren't you? I wouldn't quite say that. After all, I meant every word I just said. His lips are close enough to touch mine as he whispers back. I avert my gaze to avoid the embarrassment of staring directly into his eyes. Of course, as friends, we've always been close to one another. Still, he must have some idea how nervous he's making me when he stares at me from this distance. From this distance. Forget words. I'm not that childish to try and tread up some promise we might have made as kids while we were playing. While he smiles suggestively at me, I am reminded of the 3 years that have passed. He never used to look this handsome when he smiled. Instead, I used my mind like an adult and went with a more traditional approach. What do you mean? I asked your father for your hand in marriage and received his blessing. I gather the custom of asking the father's consent first goes back to Bonaparte time. I can't pronounce that word. What? So as I see it, I received your father's promise that I can marry you. I suddenly blurt out, "You're kidding! When did you do this?" The moment I found out I'd be working here. And what did my father actually say? He said, okay, as long as you didn't have a boyfriend. I don't believe this. I covered my face and groaned to myself. Who could have guessed Paul would go to my father and ask for my hand in marriage? So hopefully you understand now. I'm not making anything up, or joking, or blowing anything out of proportion. I'm officially your fiancé. Got it? That sounds more like a proposal to me than an actual engagement, don't you think? I'm not sure what to say or how to react. I slowly peek out at Paul from between my fingers. That's right. I'm sure I've heard somewhere that you asked the father's consent. Simply to make sure he's okay with you proposing. You can't just say we're engaged before coming to me. Are you going to accept that I'm your fiancé or aren't you? When he pressed me for an answer, I found myself unable to reply. Or perhaps you have a boyfriend. He is too forward, I swear. He is too forward. Okay, one last story ticket and then I'm gonna try to get the last 5 in. No. I answered honestly, then began to blush when I realized perhaps I shouldn't have. I've essentially told him it's okay to propose to me, haven't I? Paul has me right where he wants me. The question is, how can I break free from his clutches? Just get a boyfriend. Sweetie, please. Just not Paul. Never seen you blush so deeply before. Paul stifles a laugh. Blah. Are you starting to see me for the man that I've become? How do you expect me to respond to that? You remember the promise we made 3 years ago, right? Yes, of course. Well, that promise is extremely important to me. I've come here to Keldeo to pursue my animal research. Not to become your fiancé. And I think that's a fair argument. In that case, even though you've got my father's permission, put all this talk about engagement on hold for now. In other words, you're not turning down my proposal. Why is it that you're always so positive all the time? I have to remain positive if I want to succeed as an animal researcher, wouldn't you agree? Paul's cheerful smile brings on a wave of nostalgia. He would choose this moment to smile at me like that? I'll stop calling you my fiancé for the time being. However, I have no intention of abandoning my proposal. Understand? You're joking, right? No, I'm not. Now, will you join me for dinner? I promise not to bring up our engagement again. After all, sudden proposals only seem to scare you, so I'll just have to start as your boyfriend and work my way up. Have you always been this assertive? As horribly embarrassed as I feel, I find myself staring intently at Paul. This friend I have known since childhood is showing me sides of himself I have never seen before. Paul quietly frowns and, for a moment, seems vaguely troubled. However, this concerned look is quickly replaced by a cheerful smile. Well, I think I've answered all your questions. And we do have this surgery coming up. His tone suddenly changes as he glances over at the pile of papers on his desk. Ha! Which leads me to my next topic. Yes? I found myself growing nervous. What is he going to say next? I didn't actually call you here just to talk about our engagement or lack of thereof. To my surprise, Paul calmly begins talking about the upcoming surgery. You've been helping with examinations and preparing for the surgery. However, I also want you to assist me during the surgery. Can you give me an answer now? Are you sure? Okay. 12-minute mark. I was trying to avoid that. But again, next part, I'm going to try to get all 5. If not, that's another part. So, bye, Show 8 fans. It's at the 12-minute mark. Okay, bye.